Hello guys, I wanted to record a 1-2 where I go through the experience a little bit as a supplement to the guide on sr.com or shining4speedruns.com. So basically we're using Ken, which you can use Ken or Luke for 1-2 or even Hans. But the main thing that we're going to be focusing on is this section at the top of these mountains here where all the goblins are grouped up, and you kind of need to know Max's experience to plan how to get through 1-3, and that all starts right here. So I'll go ahead and play this out. Now, as a side note, I tend to move whoever I get control of first, move them up. Whether it's Ken or Tao, doesn't really matter. But I've got a pretty good handle on the strategy that I do here, so that's not out of the ordinary. Also there, I will always move Tao. If Ken were to have gone first, then he stays, because you don't want to block Tao. Ideally, Max goes first on the second round with this strategy, and then Tao can actually take over his spot. Ken would go where Tao is standing, and I prefer that because it's so common for Tao to outturn on the following round. Anyway, that's kind of a minor addendum. And so it should be noted that Max was level 2, and he ended up not getting any experience from this save file. You could be anywhere from not level 2 to being level 2 plus 48 or higher. So depending on what his experience is, that's also going to change how you approach this section. Generally, what I like to do when I use Ken is to treat it like Max is the same as the way he would fight the battle with Luke, except there's just no Luke. So that means moving him to attack as soon as possible. Another weird little RNG thing with the positioning of the dwarves over here is that depending on what goblins blocked, the dwarves, they'll end up in different positions. So it's actually ideal for Max to go from this position I have highlighted here down to over here and attack the dark dwarf from the right, because what happens is this dark dwarf won't have enough movement to reach the top, and you'll get a nice little block where you only get hit by one dark dwarf. So that all is kind of relevant here, so that's what I'm pointing out now. And of course, there's other versions of this battle that you can do, but this is just the one that I've found to be the most consistent and pretty fast. You want Max to be rolling for 6 damage, so leaving it with 1 HP is less than ideal. Unless Tao were to have 9 MP, then you would consider that a lucky break whenever something ends up on 1 HP, because then she can just slap it. Again though, ideally, limited amount of attacks, limited amount of times being attacked, and no remainders. So what we have here is a little bit of a decision point, also probably depending on if Max is about to hit level 3. Because level 3, you figure out if he's got 16 attack, 17 attack, or 18 attack. And if he has 16 attack, you don't gain as much experience for every hit, because the amount of damage you deal is what determines what experience you get. But in particular, these goblins, they have a remainder of 0.3 after you figure out the experience calculation. So once Max is at level 3, he gets 16 experience for a goblin kill, and then 1.3 per HP of damage dealt. So that's why this ends up being a little bit confusing for people. Since we are still not quite there yet, I'll continue to play through the battle for a minute. And we're choosing this goblin because there's a chance that Tao's going to be able to come in and clean it up, or that another goblin would move out of the way and he would not attack Max here, but it just depends. If we had killed the goblin to right there, if we had killed that goblin, then this goblin would have moved in, because this is where he really wants to be. But since that other goblin occupies the tile, then we can't do that. Similar decision point here. Do we slap this goblin now, or do we blaze in order to make it so nothing can attack Max? So actually, if we slap this one, then this goblin will come in and hit Tao. Or we have the possibility that Max goes and finishes it off as well. But if this one's already dead, then he doesn't have anything to finish off here that I don't want to be slapped. But then also Ken could have finished it. So as you can see, the game has plenty of options. We'll go with this. And that's really the way you have to approach this game, is a little bit like chess. Think about the permutations of what you're doing versus what you could be doing, and the opportunity cost associated with that. We ended up blocking Ken's path, so that's really bad actually. I should have attacked that goblin from up here, and then Ken would be able to slap that one. Air slap it. And since we decided to leave this for Tao, we're going to continue with that strategy and go for this guy. And also partly because we need a good amount of experience to hit level 3, so we can start counting. Yet another big decision point. So I've already decided that Max is going to get this kill on this goblin, and then he'll need another hit in order to level up easily. So what we're going to do is just start peppering this guy, and if Ken hits it 3 times, then that'll be enough to kill it. Sometimes you get lucky with a crit or a double crit, which is fantastic when it does happen, but exceedingly rare. And here's when the slap comes into play. Which is another interesting thing about Max being in this position. If he's in Tao's spot, that's kind of a prime spot to be attacking goblins from, and hopefully Tao is able to finish off the goblins in the top spot, because normally you have a goblin that really wants to be in the top spot, but he starts in the bottom row. So that's kind of what decides the way these goblins move. It's purely about where they're hard-coded. to stand, and that's what the developers were able to do to get the variation. So this is another thing that you can do when you decide Ken wants to hit this. So now that he's hit it, if Tao were to roll a 7 on her Blaze, then she can just be one slap away from killing that again. Ideally, she's going to be level 3 with at least one more spell to cast. And that generally will set her up pretty well for the next battle to hit level 4. But that's not always the case. And you can still pretty reliably catch her up. So in this case, she didn't leave it with 1 HP, so I'm probably going to opt to just finish it off and get rid of it. And this will be one of those cases where she has a little bit less experience than I would like, but it's still totally fine. 82 experience now. I'm not actually sure if this would give enough experience to level up. No, not quite. So how much experience did that give us? Probably like 12. Alright, so we need like another slap, ideally, on a full HP one, and that would level him up, or he can finish that off, really. But since Tao still needs another kill, she needs a couple of kills and some extra experience to hit level 3. We'll go ahead and focus on that. Now if you're thinking, there's only one goblin here and you're trying to explain goblin experience, Max isn't even level 3 yet, how do you intend to do that? Well, we're going to run through this again, and we're going to use fast forward next time. So if we put Max anywhere up here, then that's going to activate these Rune Knights and possibly the Dark Dwarves. The Dark Dwarves will be like in a soft active state where they're going to target whatever, rather if there's any targets, priority targets in range, then they'll go after them. If there's not enough priority in range though, then they'll just stay. And so I would say that they're soft activated. Since this Dark Dwarf is so close to Tao and Max, I think that this one would activate if I were to attack from the top. If you attack from the bottom, then he won't, because he's not activated at all. So we'll go with that. Interesting, and Max does have 18 attack. So if we take a look at our little cheat sheet here, which should be in the guide, 18 attack requires 80 experience, and that's based on the damage roll that you can do to the Rune Knights when you're trying to get into 1-3. And that the part where that makes the most sense, where it's easiest to see, is probably when you have 17 attack, because you need 82 experience rather than 80. And then 16 attack, you need 84 experience. Now, if you have 17 attack and you roll 9 damage, then you would only need 80 experience. So that little denotation is probably where you would figure out, okay, that's that relationship. 17 has a chance for a high or a low damage roll. 16 doesn't have a chance for the higher damage roll, and 18 always has the high damage roll. So what do we want to do here for the purpose of this tutorial thing? So Max just leveled up. In Shining Force, there's no remainder experience carried over, so he has 0 EXP. We'll just kind of slow play the rest of this portion and hand that over to Max, even if that's not necessarily what I would do in a real run. and it looks like he will be able to reach the special spot from here. So rather than activating everything up here, we're gonna do the more preferred method now. If you do end up using Max's turn for an attack. So one goblin hit. If we miss the attack, it does give 1 experience. We landed the attack, so that's going to be 16 experience for the kill, and then 1.3 for the HP that we damaged. So 16 plus 1.3 is 17.3. This game is going to round down below 5 remainder, so 17.3 is just going to be 17. Easy. Now, where do I want to put Ken where he won't get attacked, but he's still in a good spot? Right here, probably. Nothing is active yet. And the Dark Dwarf just took 2 turns before Max took his turn, so that's a good indicator that the Dark Dwarf just outturned Max, and this is the start of the round. For some odd reason, there's this land effect thing wherein both of these Dark Dwarves are alive. Max takes less damage. I'm not actually sure which one it is that sets land effects. Somebody else that's more into that can answer that. So, what did we have? We had 17.3 from the Goblin, which is 17 experience on Max right now. And Dark Dwarves give 2 per HP. Just a flat 2. So there's no remainder on this. So we've got 17 plus 16 is 33. Now we're not dealing with any more rounding. Once you get to the dwarves, it's just straight up 24 experience for the kill and 2 per HP, which means that these can only ever give a maximum of 48 experience. No matter how many times you hit it, it will only yield 48 experience. So you can see that we're at 33, as I was saying. And we know that this Dark Dwarf can't reach Max. But Ken also kind of needs somewhere to stand, and we don't want him to get hit, so we're just going to put him right here. Which, that would be a nice spot for Tau to walk if she wanted to be the one to finish that. Since he's only got 33 experience, we're probably just going to let Max finish that one. Or you can do something like putting Max at 48 experience or somewhere in the 40s so that you can kill this Dark Dwarf at the end here in 2 attacks and then add 48 to whatever you have before you get to this point. And as long as that's higher than 80, 82, or 84, depending on what attack you have, then you're good to go. So again, 33. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 24 for the kill. This represents 32 experience. We have 33 experience. This full health bar represents 48 experience. So we can't know if we'd kill it in 1 hit or not. He doesn't normally, but Max could always crit or double it. So we're gonna take the 32 experience, provided that we land the attack. And remember, if we miss, then it's 1 experience. So he's got it. 32 plus 33 is going to be 65. Depending on where you put Tau, the Dark Dwarf's either going to go for Max or Tau. So it's just whatever you're more comfortable with, whoever has more HP. Generally, putting someone on top of an enemy as a good way to get it to attack that ally, but it's not always the case. So let's think about this. If Tau doesn't crit on her spellcast, she'll deal 6 or 7 damage to the dwarf, which means it'll be left with 6 or 5 HP. And 6 or 5 HP translates to 34 or 36 experience. Now, 65 plus 34 is 99, which is conveniently under 100 experience. If, however, she leaves it with 6 HP, then 36 puts us at 101. Therefore, her damage roll directly influences whether or not we're able to prep Max fully off of this skill. So, you can see he's got 6 HP. So since this gives 36 experience, we're not in a good position for Max to kill that. However, we do have Ken's turn to prep it a little bit further. And since Max has 18 attack, he only really needs above 80 experience. So what we'll do is we'll save this for him. And now we have 65 plus the 2 and 24. So 24 and 2 HP. The 2 HP is times 2, so that's 4 plus 24. 28 plus 65. A nice quick way to do this is 28 is kind of close to 30. So we say 65 plus 30 is 95. And then how many did it take for us to get to 30 from 28? It was 2, so 95 minus 2 is 93. Just quick maths. Is 93 higher than 80? Yes. So Max is 18 attack and in the zone if he hits this. Boom. Now Max doesn't need any attacks. He's good to go for 1-3. He doesn't need to attack anyone in 1-3 until the Rune Knights. And if you're really lucky, you can get Max to an experience level where he's gonna have enough experience to level off a Dark Dwarf, which can be important since if there's enough Dark Dwarfs chasing Max, then they'll block his path. In some cases, I have still been able to get through by attacking the Dark Dwarfs and then outturning all the Rune Knights. That has happened, but normally you're gonna go for the Rune Knights. And then there's, of course, times when you attack the Dark Dwarf and you don't level, but then you would have leveled off the Rune Knight. So that's just something to keep in mind. People had been asking a little bit about, oh, how do you do everything so fast, or how do you know all this, or, you know, whatever. This is how. You just have to count it all out. Generally, if Max is going to be attacking this Dark Dwarf, just imagine that this Rune Knight that I'm highlighting has gone. Max is able to attack this Dark Dwarf from the top, and then the Dark Dwarf moves up here, and then Max can also attack it from the back for free. So this Dark Dwarf represents an extra 48 experience that Max can get, which is why I was talking about sometimes you may just want to end on 51 experience or 48 or anything where another 48 won't put you over 100. So that's where that comes into play. But since Max already is in the zone, he's already got enough experience, I generally will finish this Rune Knight off just because Max can walk into town in one round. And if you're going to attack this Dark Dwarf, then you might as well not move Ken the extra couple spaces. Although, I suppose Max ends up moving the same amount of spaces regardless, so your travel time is going to be roughly the same. It's not going to matter, whatever you prefer to do. What's important is the turn orders. So if Max is able to get into the city on this turn order, then that's better than if I have to wait an extra turn order, even if it's the same movement. Or same number of movement. Same number of distance traveled. This is another interesting concept here. Like, at the point you're watching the turn order well enough to determine if Tao goes at the beginning of a turn order, or if you think Max has a relatively high chance to go right after Tao, and this is prepped and she happens to have some MP left, which I generally leave her with, you can kind of put her up here, finish off this Rune Knight, and if Max goes before the Dark Dwarf, then he can get into town before being blocked. In this case, it doesn't work out, but mainly I wanted to show off this little decision point. So now we're kind of forced to stay. Tao gets back out safely, thankfully, although she could have died. We waste another full round because the Dark Dwarf is still blocking. And it's not a huge amount of time difference, but that's just a little bit of how things can go. So let's rewind. This isn't where I want to be either. I want to go through the Goblin experience with a different save file if I have one. I actually don't think I have a different one, so we'll just make do with this while I fast forward really quick. Sorry for fast forwarding through it. This goblin did come up and attack Max. That's where he came from. Now this isn't normally what I would do. I'm just going to try and set up Max's experience so I can just kind of show the different damage rolls and how it's counted out. Alright, we got the +2 experience. Max will have 15 attack at level 2, and you want 19 attack or more at level 4 when you're getting into 1-3. That way you can use your 2 power potions and get somewhere in between 22 to 24 attack. This guy has 6 HP left over. Okay, so let's say it's Max's turn again. On 0 experience, this is going to end up on a weird number. So 6 times 1.3 is 7.8. Since the 8 is higher than 5, that's going to round up. So 7.8 just becomes 8. 16 plus 8 equals 24. So this is 24 experience right here. We're just going to have Max, or Ken, do his normal diagonal hit. This is usually one of the few goblins that he hits in this portion. It is tempting to take that with Tal, but just for the sake of explanation, we'll do the hope for the 7 damage roll. She didn't get it again. How tragic. So as I said, he's got 0, and this is going to be 24. 16 plus 8 rounded up from 7.8 equals 24. Don't get any extra experience for the attack. You only get the experience for the attack if you miss. So that's 24. Now, you also don't have to remember the remainders. Like, let's say if you were thinking, okay, he's got the extra 0.7, and we don't really know about rounding it, but we know enough to track the remainder. That's not how it works. It rounds on every turn. So, you would just need to figure out your own method at that point, or do some very dubious counting and it would still work out. Hey, what do you know? That does work sometimes. That's good that it's shown here. Three and 24. So let's put this at 8 HP if we can. Now, what does this represent if Max were to crit and kill this? Or, actually, when he's got 17 attack, he's got a chance to do natural 8 damage. He'll either roll 7 or 8 damage. Okay? So when he's got 18 attack, he's either going to do 8 or 9 damage. And when he's got 16 attack, he's either going to roll 6 or 7 damage. Remember, when he rolls 6 damage, that equates to 7.8, which is rounded up to 8 experience. If we were to kill this, then that's 8 HP at 1.3 per. So 8 times 1.3 is 10.4. So since 0.4 is below 5, it rounds down. So this represents 16 plus 10, or 26 experience. 26 experience plus 24 puts him at 50. If we roll a 7, then that's only going to be 9 experience, because 7 times 1.3, bust out the calculator for this one just because, hey, I'm tired of doing math in my head. 7 times 1.3, 9.1. 9.1 rounds down to 9. Okay. So we either have him ending on 33 experience or 50 experience, depending on his damage roll. he's got 50 experience. This puts you in the interesting position of just being able to kill a full Dark Dwarf, or prepping one and killing the other one without leveling up. As long as you're doing your counting fine, it doesn't really matter what it is. But yeah, it is very important to note that the experience caps out at 48 on this mob, no matter what, when max is level 3. Good stuff. So none of these guys are activated. If we want them to be activated, Tal could actually move here or here, but she would get attacked. So we're not going to do that. They're also not in a good enough position for Max to kind of walk out and do any blocking, unless he comes all the way over here. So we're going to try and advance Ken a little bit too, because his movement through the map is also a determining factor in how fast or slow this is when you use Ken, just based on how fast he's able to kill the Rune Knight. That would be blocking Max from going forward. Now, since they had proximity, and just because of the way the turn orders went, now we have free reign on this guy. And we know he has 50 experience, this has a maximum of 48, and it's only whole numbers on the per HP damage dealt. So if he crits this, then that's totally fine. Or doubles. So he dealt 7 damage. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 50 is 64. So he can kill this one, because remember, 64 plus 34 would be only 98. Or Tao can kill it, and then she can prep the next one for him. Or he can have some other version of prepping this one, but that's a lot harder. So let's just say that we want to save it for Max. And in doing so, he's only going to get hit this time, and more importantly, since both Dark Dwarves are alive, he's not going to be getting hit for as much in certain circumstances. To clarify again, I'm not an expert on the land effect to the point where I know every mob, and it is capable of knowing that stuff if you're interested. So I would definitely, even if I don't attack with him, I would definitely be moving Ken. The only reason to attack this Dark Dwarf here would be because I don't think Ken has enough experience, which he really doesn't have a set goal, but it's nice to have him be level 3 or level 4 at some point in the run before you get rid of him. So we're just gonna not attack, because he doesn't really need to. And remember, 64 experience. If we wanted to chance the attack on this Dark Dwarf, this Dark Dwarf represents 48 experience, so that is in danger of putting us past level 3, which we don't want to be level 4 yet, which is the whole point of the sneak. So the safe play is to kill this Dark Dwarf. That put him at 98 experience. Now, we still want to get rid of this Dark Dwarf. Tao still needs to level up. She's really close to leveling up, so her next damage against this guy is going to level her up, and then she can likely finish him off herself. Now, there's a danger in tanking this with Ken. Ken could die in 2 hits, and then you have no way to get through. Same thing with Max. If Max were to take a double or a crit here, he's dead and your run's dead anyway. But we're going to move Ken in the furthest spot that he can move so that he can get rid of these guys faster, which I find to be the better play overall. And look at that, Tao is gone. She can even do something interesting here and block if you're not sure the way that the aggro plays out. I happen to know that when Max is this damaged and she's level 3, then it's going to go for her. Again, when you have someone above an ally like that, or an above an enemy like that, it kind of short circuits its programming a little, and it's compelled to hit what's on top of it. The same thing cannot be said for down. That's just kind of one of the quirks in the programming, but she is the main target here, so that's just kind of an aside. Alright, so we've got 98 experience. We're completely primed to go through, and you don't need to see me do the last portion again. So hopefully that was helpful, and if you need any clarification on anything, feel free to drop a comment on my YouTube channel. Alright, that's been Cloud Carry explaining how to get through 1-2 without checking your experience, and hopefully you all enjoyed that. Have a good one.